Welcome back inside this week's edition of Trailblazer Weekly, live on CEC TV and SouthernUtahLive.com, where the women's swimming team is approaching its winter season. And today, we're pleased to have head coach Benjamin Ray joining us on the show. Coach, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's always good to get to know our coaches and student athletes better, and that's really the reason for bringing you on the show today. And as we're excited for women's swimming and what that brings, another sport here to the university as you begin. You've had a few meets and whatnot already. We'll talk about those in just a minute, but you're getting ready to jump into the heart of your schedule, and we'll talk about that as well. But first, I want to ask you, whenever I bring coaches in, I like to ask questions like this. It's kind of a fun way to start off the interview, and you've had a few minutes to think about this at least, but what is your favorite memory in or around the swimming pool? I know you've been involved in swimming for a lot of years. You know, maybe it's a personal swimming accomplishment, maybe it's a coach, maybe you were at the Olympics once upon a time. What's your favorite memory in or around the swimming pool?
You know, that's a tough question when you've been in it a long time, but I've probably got a few, but a couple that stick out in my mind. Actually, this last summer, I had one of my former swimmers who made the Olympic team for the U.S., Gunnar Bentz, and he was able to compete in the relays down in Rio. And so that was a lot of fun to kind of watch that and see a former athlete compete at that level and get an Olympic gold medal. But there's been a lot, you know, from coaching high school and being at state championship meets and seeing state champions and club meets across the country. So it's just been a lot of exciting times.
Absolutely. Let's rewind now to a little more than a year and a half ago. It's March 2015. Dixie State has just announced its addition of women's swimming to its athletic program. Of course, at that time, they still needed a coach. They were beginning that search for a coach. Where were you at the time? What were you doing? And were you immediately interested in the position upon first learning of the need for a coach?
Well, that's kind of an interesting question because I'm still only a part-time coach, and so I still have a day job. And that job right now is managing the Washington City Community Center. So I had a little bit of a heads up where we don't have current facilities on campus, and I knew that they were kind of exploring where they might house such a program. So I kind of heard about that, and I spent most of my career coaching, and so I was immediately interested in that opportunity. And so when that came up, I put my hat in the ring, and here we are today.
Of course, I've always admired that. You mentioned that, you know, you're a part-time coach here and then full-time job elsewhere. I've always admired your ability to be able to manage time. There's a few other coaches like that on campus, I know. It's amazing what you guys do to dedicate yourselves to be able to have the success on the athletic side and then still work your full-time job. But the other question I had about that was, why Dixie State? I know that you attended Dixie State. It's been a while back now, but got an associate's degree here on campus. But why Dixie State?
I think at the point that I was at, I really was intrigued by having a new program, something where you could come in, really develop it, make it your own. I had the opportunity to be a high school head coach before, spent a lot of time previously coaching, you know, in college and club levels, but I was intrigued by that opportunity to come in and start this new program and really see what we could do for the university, and really excited for the opportunity of more athletes within the state to be able to have the opportunity to compete collegiately.
And that rolls right into my next question perfectly. Since being hired in June 2015 is when they announced your addition to our staff here at Dixie State. I mean, you went to work immediately building a team, getting them ready to compete this fall and into this winter. What has the last year and a half been like for you? You mentioned you're working the two jobs, and then you're building a brand new program from the ground up, and it sounds like you've enjoyed the challenge.
No, it's been great. I think it has been really a challenge. I think that's the best way to put it. When you come into a position and there's really no preconceived notions about what it's going to be, and you don't know what the response will really be as you're starting that new program. But I think the commitment from the university has been great right from the beginning, giving us a full year to kind of get things organized, to get athletes into the program, And I just look at other programs that are entering their first year, even within our conference, and they're definitely having a little bit more of a challenging time, where I feel like the commitment of the university has really helped us to at least jump in there and have some early success.
And you touched on this a little bit, but how excited were you at the prospect of the challenge of building your team and not just inheriting, a team from somebody else?
Yeah, that's probably the number one reason why I'm here today, is I wanted that opportunity to build something. I think all of us want the opportunity to see what we can do and, what we're capable of. And, coming in at the ground level, the buck stops here, essentially. Everything that you do is new, and there's only one person to look back at when things go right and when things go wrong.
Let's talk about this year's team. You put together a great team in the year that you've had to build that team. 17 swimmers total on the roster, including 14 freshmen, which is probably not that uncommon when you're building a team from scratch. And it's a young but talented squad. Just talk to us about some of the swimmers, who should be familiar with, and who are those names that we're going to hear about as you jump into the heart of your schedule.
Yeah, it's been that's probably been the most challenging part, is to kind of make athletes familiar with the program and get them in. 17 is a big number of new athletes to be in a program without anybody to kind of show them the way. But some of the athletes that are coming along, it's always good to bring in a couple of transfers who maybe have a little bit of experience. So we have Phoebe James, who has come into our program, sprinter that came from BYU. I think that she will kind of lead that level of our competition. We brought in Anissa O'Connell from Western State, Colorado, and she's going to help us in the butterfly area. And then I've been really impressed with some of the younger freshmen. I think Audrey Parrish, coming out of Washington State, has really done well so far. Abby Graves out of Arizona. But certainly all the girls, I think, have stepped up to the challenge of building this new program, and I think we're going to see some really good things as we get into the heart of the season here.
Now, for those not familiar with the conference that you're in the PCSC, or the Pacific Collegiate Swim Conference. That actually includes 2 Division I schools, at least as far as their other sports are concerned, Loyola Marymount and Pepperdine. The conference looks like it's stacked and really should provide some hardy competition for your team in your first season.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough conference to come into. Last year there was 5 teams in the conference within the top 30 ranked nationally, including UC San Diego, who finished 3rd last year at NCAA championships. So I think right off the bat, that's going to give us a lot. It's a lot to work for. But there's certainly, I think, a good mix in there that, they've been very welcoming to us coming into the conference, and I think it'll give us a good avenue to kind of jumpstart the program.
It's been a few weeks ago now, but you opened your season at the PCSC Relays and then the pentathlon the day after in October. 6th place finish in the relays on day 1, and some good individual stuff on day 2. But that's what we've seen in the recap and whatnot. Fill us in on the details in between from that first opening weekend. How did that weekend go competing in your first event as a program?
Yeah, I think it was a good place to start. It had a lot of the conference teams there. It gave us a good opportunity to kind of see what the competition would be like. And for all except for 2 of the girls, this is their first collegiate experience, and so that was certainly a challenge as we kind of tried to work our way through it. On Friday for the relays, you could definitely see that we were a young team who needs a little bit of experience, and just being one of the smaller teams, I think that puts a little bit of pressure on you. Certain things you talk about as you start a new program. We're not used to swimming outdoors. There's a lot of outdoor venues in California, and so that was kind of a unique environment for us. And it was a little bit warm for our liking. So I think that made it a little bit challenging. But I think that the athletes really did well and kind of started to grasp what we're looking to get out of them.
Well, thanks again, Coach. We really appreciate you stopping by the show today. We're excited, again, like we said, for your inaugural season, really to jump in to those events. Coach, you head down to Phoenix next week, take on Arizona Christian in a dual meet there. We wish you the best of luck. Again, we thank you for stopping by. Before we let you go, and I was explaining a little bit of this to you before, we've got this Trailblazer Weekly hard hat. Kind of represents the hard work that the good folks here at CEC went through to build this great set for our interviews. We want you to sign it. Okay. You see that all the coaches there have signed that thing that we've had on the show so far this season. So just pick a spot, sign it, and kind of mark it with your sport by there, and we'll remember your interview here forever. So
that's awesome.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
The women's swimming team, again, like we mentioned, heads to Phoenix next week for a dual meet with Arizona Christian on November 11th and 12th. It's time for our next break. When we come back, we'll take a look ahead at the next week in Trailblazer athletics, as well as hear from men's soccer Medina brothers in our player profile feature. There's more Trailblazer Weekly after this.